Obesity can only occur through a sustained period of time with a caloric surplus. So stop eating as much. If only it was that simple. Obesity is a massive problem. But who's to blame? Perhaps fat loss isn't understood. Perhaps people are reluctant to lift weight. Or perhaps it is a powerful shift in mindset that needs to occur to shift people's perspectives. And throughout this podcast, I'm going to share some ideas and perspectives on obesity and whose choice is it? Is it a personal choice or is it something else? So obesity doesn't come without its challenges. I mean, you've got the health concerns, no doubt, that most people are aware of. Even those who are obese themselves are probably well aware of what these health concerns are. We also have the social stigma as well. People no doubt take a bit of a glance at someone when they're obese and goodness knows what they're thinking. A multitude of things probably zipping through their minds at that point. These people probably can't go in to a dairy or a corner shop or a 7-Eleven or just a place to get a chocolate bar without some thoughts of, do you really need that? Another chocolate bar? All these assumptions that society will throw at them. And then there's the mobility issues too. Life is just that much harder when you're carrying weight, especially when you're obese. So the question is, does someone choose to be obese and they're quite happy to be obese? Or is it more a case of an accumulation of poor choices as you go throughout different aspects of life that end up in the result of someone being and perhaps staying obese? Is it poor nutritional choices? Or is it poor physical choices? Or is it both? I think genetics is a good place to start here, and it's a very real thing. I don't think it falls into the category of excuse. And as we go through this podcast, we'll have a look at all these different aspects, and some of them reasoning, some of them excuses, some of them are just personal choices that people make. But we'll address things one by one, starting here with genetics. So if you get a collection of people and you have them all eat the same amount, the same number of calories throughout the day, then over time, be it weeks or months, you'll always get different results. You would think it's the same, and if we were robots that actually digested food, then yes, maybe. But everyone is just so different, and various studies have confirmed this over many, many years, is that not all calories are the same, not all movement is the same, not all people are the same, not all decisions are the same. And this is the fascinating area of the social construct of eating and body fat loss and muscle building and the mindset of it all. But genetics do make people different in terms of the results that they get from the calories that they eat and the physical activity that they do, whether it's intentional or otherwise. Well, there have been studies where people eat all the same foods and then the results dramatically differ. Some people lose weight or maintain weight, others gain weight. And there are so many reasons as to why this is. Weight training, if you're a fidgety person, if you make sensible food choices, your sleep, your stress levels, how you manage life, your outlook in general. So many things that go just beyond simply putting something into your mouth. And for genetics, the influence that it has on your metabolism. And the first thing is with genetics is the influence that it has on your metabolism. The number of calories that you eat at rest can change between any number of people in a given population. Sample size, big or small, it's still the same. People differ. And they also differ as a result or in reaction to exercise. Whether it's cardio, whether it's weight training, or whether it is fidgeting, doing your housework, walking up and down the stairs or the corridor, picking this up, putting that down, getting up off the couch, getting back down onto it, whatever it might be. The reaction to exercise is different in terms of the calories that you burn and the after effects of that. And then there's also the eating. For example, thermogenesis. When you eat protein, it takes X amount of energy for the body, which it has to expend in order to extract that protein. or the energy from that protein. It leaves you with a net amount of energy, not the amount that it originally contained when you first put it into your mouth. So for different people, what they eat and how it goes through the body, it's different. And one really interesting thing is subconscious behavior, stuff that you're not aware of, just to clarify that, is that when you do something to try and better yourself, which ends up costing you energy, the body is well aware of that. The body is a very complex, smart organism, by the way. And when you do something such as, I'm going to do more exercise to burn more calories because I am obese, the body will react by trying to decrease something else. So if you are used to doing a bit of DIY and, walking around the house doing this, that and the other, fidgeting, can't sit still, people say, if you're that kind of person, if you start exercising, your brain will probably subconsciously make you stop doing some or all of that other stuff in an attempt to make you rest, because over here you're starting to do more. So it's a fascinating thing about how the body adapts in that situation to account for its new environment and the decisions that you're making. And we all know these people, don't we, that they can seemingly eat whatever they want to eat. Everything's fine. They never put on any weight. And all by the same token, there's always someone who is exercising all the time, trying out the latest diet, and they never change. They're always a little bit on the chunky side. They're a bit fat, obese perhaps. And then you've got some people who are just exercising all the time, going through their weight training routine, and they never put on any muscle. And they just always struggle to do that. And you've got all these people that fit into these different categories that you know them by, and that's kind of how you look at them as whenever the subject of this is brought up. And it's like, oh yes, you never put on weight, or oh, you can eat that and don't worry about it. People fall into these various categories, and that's because of genetics, mainly. And the social aspect is always quite fascinating. When someone's in really good shape, or when they've lost a bit of weight, or they're not obese, praises are handed out left, right and centre, like, oh, you've transitioned from A to B, well done. And then someone is still obese and they get the odd dig, or there's comments that aren't that good in nature, or they're not received very well. But in reality, someone that's obese may well have achieved the same weight loss as someone who gets a praise, but it's just their obesity is at a level by which it's not recognised that much. And so the social invitation of praise or whatever doesn't really extend to them. And it's I'd imagine that's quite rough to deal with. There's also the aspect of hunger. Hunger is a really real thing. No doubt people know this. Who doesn't know that? But when it comes to inserting hunger into a program or an approach, or you're trying to integrate it into your life, and hunger just keeps coming up and it's ruining it and it's getting in the way, it's a very real thing. And it's something that differs dramatically for different people. And then the way that people manage hunger is also another separate thing all on its own. Some people are just like, oh, I'll just get something later on. And it's just kind of one of those throwaway things. Yes, you're hungry, but and in a few hours' time, I'll satiate myself with a little something until my next main meal, and that's all there is to it. Whereas other people, that hunger stops them in their tracks. It's like slamming your brakes on in the car. Life goes no further. No further thoughts matter, and it's just, I'm hungry, and that is it. And it needs to change. I can't carry on being hungry like this. So what's it going to be? And that domination of thoughts is a completely different experience to someone who can just deal with it and handle it later on. And then hunger can just extend past this one moment of being hungry, and it just influences your entire life. And it just becomes about food, and it remains about food. And I've tried this diet, but I was so hungry I just had to give up. That's where knowledge and education comes into it, because the approach is probably a question mark over that. But nonetheless, when hunger enters the equation, for some people, especially the obese, it's an entirely different thing. It's like an event of the day, or multiple events of the day, compared to someone who's perhaps not obese and can deal with it, has their own management mechanisms in place. In addition to hunger and the hormones that cause that, there's a litany of other hormones for both men and women alike that can just simply derail your efforts. And it can come from lack of sleep, it can come from stress, and the hormone cortisol can contribute significantly to that. You've got various medication that you might go on. You might get pregnant, you might be going through a menopause. Who knows? But you've got all these different things that can just pop up and rear their ugly head and just derail your efforts entirely. And at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that obesity is caused, or can only be caused, by a surplus of calories over an extended period of time. And that's so true. But just to dip into that a bit further, is a surplus means different things for different people, and this is also key as to why obesity may actually occur in the first place. Now, a surplus could be something that you're looking forward to. You're otherwise in shape, perhaps you exercise, perhaps you're now going to reward yourself. A Friday night, Saturday night, whatever else with the family, you go out for a meal, get a takeout, whatever it is, and you look forward to it. And you know very well that you're going to be eating more than you normally would do. Whatever your meal is, you know that it's not a great meal, but it will taste great, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to be satisfied, and then the next day, you're going to move on. And even during that meal, instead of ordering 5 items from the menu, you're quite happy with 3, because you know that 3 is more than enough. It will satisfy you, you'll have a good time, and you'll go to bed satisfied. And that's all there is to it. You just order it, you eat it, and you move on. For those who are obese, it could well be a very different story. Because when people of that nature think about a calorie surplus, it's not something that they can necessarily stop. They start eating and they just have to carry on eating. And it's that hunger again that comes in. But now they're no longer hungry, but they continue eating, because a surplus for them is just an entirely different experience. It's not a bit of food that they enjoy. It is an event. It's something that just is here, and they're divulged in it, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's not something that they necessarily think about, perhaps, but it just carries on, and they carry on eating. And it might even extend to the next day or the day after that. It may not actually even stop, because the surplus is an entirely different thing in their minds for them rather than other people. It's like some people need a bit of caffeine, a bit of a pick-me-up, grab a donut, who knows, a little bit of sugar here and there. It just serves them well, a bit of coffee, then they can move on to the next thing. And that's the end of it. But for someone who has got a weight problem, whether they're obese or not, that again is an entirely different experience. They don't have a pick-me-up. They have that's the end of the day for me, because I'm now eating. And after I've eaten, I can't see myself doing anything else. I'm just going to be on the couch or in bed, and that's it. Again, very different experiences. And then the reason for that eating could be entirely different again. Someone might just want a bit of a pick-me-up because they're just feeling a little stressed out. The day has just got on top of them a wee bit, or they've got an opportunity now just to have a chill out for 20 minutes, and away they go. But then somebody else who might be obese, for example, that isn't the case, and they've got so much stress to deal with. It's very hard to manage life. They may suffer from some form of anxiety. They might not sleep very well. Their ability not to move very well just might make them constantly depressed. They're in this vicious cycle. They don't know how to get out of it. And food, the calorie surplus, is the way for them to just escape that for a moment, or continuously escape that feeling. And the environment that we live in has got a lot to answer for. I mean, food these days has never been the same as it has been for years on end. What they actually put in food is one question, but then the availability of it, it's way different from what it has been from years ago. If I wanted to get a takeout now, get on the phone and it's here within 20 minutes or half an hour. Get in the car and I've got such an option down the road to choose from as to what I want. Food availability has just taken off, and it's so plentiful as well. There's very few shortages and whatnot, especially of the foods that generally tend to be more affordable. The worse they are, the more sugar laden there are, the less goodness that they have, the cheaper they tend to be. If you wanted to live on a carnivore diet, so meat only, it would cost you far more than eating on a diet that consisted of, grains and meat, combination carbohydrates, vegetables, etc. So it's very easy to just eat crap food, and it's quite affordable to do it as well. And then the wider question here is, it's not just about obese people. So if an obese person struggles to get down from, I don't know, let's say 50% body fat down to 30% body fat, or down to 40% body fat, a 10% drop, then that's bad, right? But then if you've got someone who's in relatively good shape at 20% body fat and they want to make a decision of getting ready for some contest, or they just want to get into really good shape for whatever their reasoning might be, and they want to drop to 10%. But around somewhere in the middle, around that 15% mark, they hit a few roadblocks. It's too much for them. For whatever reason, they struggle to really get down to that goal of 10% when they started at 20. So you've got two different people that are struggling to lose 10% body fat. But the person that is trying to go from 20 to 10, oh, don't worry about it, gave it a go, it's fine, happens, it's pretty hard what you're doing. It's okay, just stay as you are, perfectly fine. But then someone that's obese that struggles to drop 10%, it's like, oh, what are you doing wrong? You're not making good choices, something isn't quite right, and you need to have a good think about it. And then to be treated in two separate ways, two different people, that's a big question mark over what the question actually is, and the support that we give people and the feedback they receive for their efforts. There's also the argument of time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, right? And therefore, if one person can do it, why can't you? We all have the same time in the day. And it's not really an argument that I buy into, because everyone is different. That's one thing. And then everyone's life is so different. That's another. The time pressures, family commitment, stress, the financial burdens, the way that everything is managed in their head, the stress, the anxiety, life in general, work, disabilities, worries, all of these things. Two people are not the same, regardless of the time frame they have in life. That's just my opinion. And so it's always about the individual rather than a blanket statement for me. There's also the additional factor of if you gave someone a template to get rich, and you said, right, go and do this with your money, and in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll be rich. And then in 5 years' time, they go, why aren't you rich? What did you do wrong? I mean, that person has to consider the risk, their adversity to risk that's involved. That money that they have to invest, is it all for investment, or is it for other things, other financial commitments? And then the mental anguish with that of, like, if I've invested my money, then what's going to happen to it? Is something going to crash? How do I know it's going to go up or down? There's no guarantees, therefore it's not really something that they do. Whereas somebody else is quite happy just to give it a go and see what happens, and they'll deal with the consequences or live with the fantastic results. Two very different things. And then with nutrition and exercise and the mindset around obesity, it's not too dissimilar. Because if you gave someone a nutritional plan and said, eat this for the next 3 months and you'll be amazed what happens. You'll drop weight like crazy. Body fat will melt off you. The person might be like, well, that's excellent. But then there's, how much trust do I have in this nutritional plan? How do I know it's going to work? If I'm going to put myself through the mental anguish of having to make all these radical changes in my life to follow that, how do I know that it's correct and that that's what I am going to follow and that I will get those results? There's the trust issue, there's the mental anguish and anxiety of having to make so much change in your life. There are the environmental factors too, social occasions, people's questions and comments, doubting yourself. All these things contribute towards that person not being able to follow that nutritional plan, just like that person with money didn't invest it the way they were told to. And unfortunately, there is the identity crisis too. I've talked to a lot of people that have been obese or that are obese, and their comment is, well, I'm just obese. That's who I am. That's just the way that I'm probably going to stay. And when you sadly have that mentality, so hard to get out of it because that's just who you are. And it almost gets to the point where if they are then seen at a later date around the same people who see themselves the same as what they do and they've lost weight, it's quite a socially terrifying for some people situation to face those people and talk about what they've been through and what it's been like and have that initial reaction of like, wow. And it's meant as a compliment, but it's a lot for some people to actually receive that. And they get kind of scared at the prospect of it. So therefore they might not want to change who they actually feel is part of their identity in the first place, despite all the negative aspects of remaining the way that they are. And there's the mindset aspect too. Some people aren't in the right frame of mind to get right. Their family tells them to lose weight. The mirror tells them to lose weight. The medical advice that they receive all centers around losing weight. They watch TV programs that tell them people like you need to lose weight. All the clothes in the clothes shop and the sizes that are available to them all tell them you should lose weight. But them themselves, their mind and the position that they're in, where they're at, is not reflective of all those signs. And when someone is not yet in a position to lose weight, very, very hard to just fight against the grain in that manner. And then even if they did make that shift and they did say, yes, I am now in a position where I would like to do that, I'd like to make that change, organizing their life, entering this foreign world that they've now got to leave. They can't behave the same and live the same life the same and eat the same, and all those mechanisms that help them to survive as an obese person are now different. Such a huge mindset change to adapt to, and not everyone can do it. Not everyone has the help or support that they need to do it either. So ultimately, it is someone's responsibility to take care of themselves. We all take care of ourselves ultimately within the grand scheme of things. All the intricacies, the thoughts, the little bits and bobs that we do that contributes to our daily life, that's all our responsibility. We care for others, we check up, we help where we can, but we are ultimately responsible for ourselves. And that is the bottom line, regardless of whether you are obese or not. It often is the case that people want the results, but they're not willing to do the work. And this applies to people that are in relatively good shape and people who aren't as well, is that they want to achieve the results, so therefore they do some of the things that they need to do. They'll have a bit of a clean up of their diet, perhaps they'll go for a walk that they wouldn't have normally have gone on. But then it doesn't go as far as it needs to. Some of the pieces of the puzzle remain out there in the obscurity of their mind, and others have fallen into place nicely. And then they start to wonder, well, I've done this, that, and the other, and they will start to get some results, as will anyone when they make a change for the better. But to get a long way in this direction of reducing obesity, you have to have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, if not all of them, in place in order to progress forward. And people tend to want the results, but they don't do the work. And then there are expectations as well that are often so out of this world. You've got, for example, bodybuilders, fitness competitions, etc. People who know what they're doing and they work towards it all year round or for a good portion of the year. And they're in that correct mindset, they have that support, that is their identity, and they know what they're doing, and away they go. And they don't have all these internal struggles for the most part, because their lives have to be as easy as possible in order to achieve that particular goal. Because we only see the people that do achieve it, we don't see the people that drop out because they can't. But then those people take all these photos and put them on social media and so forth. Back in the day, it used to be a feature in the magazine. And these people that are trying so desperately to lose weight, maybe they're obese, they look at those and they think, gee, that will never be me. And more often than not, it won't be, and it doesn't have to be. And it's a shame that these expectations are being set there without the clarity of what goes on. It would be nice to hear someone's story rather than just a picture of the peak of their game at the end result. It would be great for them to sort of do a podcast and explain the journey. And I bet most people, obese or not, would relate to that in terms of the struggles and the hardship that goes along with going from A to B. And then the downfall, because you can't remain at that pinnacle for even more than a few hours until your next drink, really. And so the backward slide, what's that like? And how do they stop that from occurring to the point where they then start to pile on the pounds? And all these things could be great to hear about, but unfortunately we just see that end result, and then there's a degree of envy or jealousy or reasons popping into your head of, I can never achieve anything close to that. And then there's the educational piece. I think this is probably the most important part, is that people might be able to get into that mindset of, I'm going to now lose weight, or obesity is no longer for me. And their lives might change to enable them to achieve the results that they want. And all the things that we've been talking about just now, they might all fall in line to allow someone to now proceed and change for the better. But because they don't have the knowledge and or education, then they're going to set themselves up for failure. And it's such a shame. And the sad thing is that this happens over and over and over again. And someone has a personal responsibility to spend the time finding who they can trust, finding who they can relate to, and finding out who seems to be a reliable source of information that if they put their eggs into that basket with that person, then they're likely to succeed. The exercise they recommend, the nutrition that they recommend, the mindset that they coach them on, if they can find someone who they're happy with that works for them and is not just full of what, that is when they can then proceed forward. So if they can combine that along with all the changes in lifestyle and mindset, then that's when they're onto a winner. And someone has a personal responsibility to do that work, to make sure that the work that they then do after that is going to be one that gets them to where they want to be. So the original question here was, is obesity a personal choice? And I feel that it extends beyond whether it's a yes, I'm going to be obese, or no, I'm not, I'm going to go and do something about it. The personal choice is really setting yourself up to succeed or perhaps fail. That is the main part of it, is organising your life sufficiently, getting help where required to obtain the knowledge and education that you need to in order to know that what you're about to do is accurate and it will serve you well. And organising your life, asking people to help you or whatever else in order to get things lined up so that things are as easy as they can be, and that your stress is managed, that you are getting sleep, etc., etc. But it is a personal choice at the end of the day to make that decision, and then having people or mechanisms in place to deal with life's stresses and the things that derail you and get in your way, managing your hunger, knowing what foods that you're eating, and then just the expectations of, I'm not going to be a bodybuilder in the next year. I've just got a lot of work to do myself to get to where I want to be. It's your own personal goal. So it's your choice whether or not you're going to start. And it's your choice whether or not you're going to set yourself up to fail or succeed. But then ultimately, it's a big battle and a fight against all these elements that you need to be able to navigate. So for that person wanting to get from 20% down to 10%, or for that person looking to get from 50% down to 40% that's currently obese, all in the same boat. We're all going through the same battle, and we just all need to support each other. And that's what me here at the Deep South Experiment is attempting to do, is to build that community all around fat loss, muscle building and mindset, the three major components regardless of your physical goals that will get you to where you need to get to. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, it's a bit late now to say it, but subscribe, thumbs up and a comment if you've thought this discussion has been relatively useful. Thanks very much. Catch you later.